Alright, so hello everyone. It's been a while since we've done some coding in C#, hasn't it? It's been a little while, so you might recall that in the first episode of this series, at the very end of it, I mentioned that we would be doing a calculator, which would be essentially the final application where I will cover most, if not all, the things that you need in order to create such an application. If there will be demand, I will try and create more applications just in the console itself. However, in the future, you might see me use Windows Forms for a little while. I say might because Windows Forms aren't really that different. Those are just fancy buttons that do the same things as you would be able to do in the console. Hence why we were dealing with console applications the entire time throughout the entire series. So essentially today we'll be creating a full-fledged calculator within C#. Now you might notice that my space is a bit different. That's because my network card died, so I have to use the Ethernet adapter, which is in my computer, the Ethernet plug, and I have to be connected via Ethernet because my Wi-Fi card has died, which you can see right here. It died on me, so that happened. But the main thing is that I have internet back, so I'm able to do all my online classes and stuff, so you don't have to worry about me not being a irresponsible member of society. Anywho, so what about the calculator itself? So to create such a application, I'm going to mention a few things I may or may not have mentioned before. This actually correlates to this thing. You might recall this from from February, about 2 months ago, when I made the simple calculations video from which this code is. And this code essentially is a release box standard calculator where you have predefined numbers. For example, number one it has the value of 2, and number 2 has the value of 4. What we will be doing essentially, we will be taking input from the user, and then we will give the user an option to pick from a set of calculations. And then we'll be using also loops, because we will keep the user and keep them asking for new numbers and new operations. We will first ask them if they want to keep the numbers, if they want to exit. If they don't want to exit, we're going to ask if they want to keep their numbers, and then if they don't want to keep the numbers, we will move them back up. So this application will be quite complex, hence why it is important to understand all the things from the previous episodes, because most of the things I talked about throughout this series will be utilized here. So that's really important to understand. So let's get coding. So if I just blinded you, I'm really sorry. I just don't really care. So to create such an application, we're going to have to first define our main loop, and our main loop will check one variable. Our one variable will be option 1, and our second one will be option 2. Those can be defined as full-fledged number variables. So no decimal numbers or anything like that. Just full-fledged zeros or ones, for example, for defining if the user has picked that they want to restart the application again or just exit it. To determine that, we're going to create a integer variable called exit. We'll give it the default value of 0 for now. And then we'll create a new num variable, which will have also the value of 0. These will be our default variables right here. So basically what the exit one checks, the exit one will check if the user wants to exit the app or not. If they want to exit, the application will close. If they don't, the application will continue to run. Next one is the new num. The new num will be the second one called, because we will ask the user if they want to keep the numbers or not. If they don't want to keep the numbers, we will ask them to type in new numbers, which we will be able to define fairly easily. So first off, let's define some basic logic here. So here we're going to add a if statement, and we're going to essentially check if they have picked the the unum variable. So if the unum variable is equal to let's say 0, then we will basically create newer numbers. The newer numbers will be defined as a different data type. The data type we'll be using for these will be the float data type. So we'll just use float and we'll be using two numbers here. So number 1 and number 2, let's say. To prevent anything weird from happening, we're going to give them the default value of, what is one nice default value? 1. Let's say 1. Because you can add ones, you can divide ones, and it won't crash. So this is a nice little safety measure, because with this you will prevent anything weird from happening. So if the user just keeps randomly clicking enter, it will just go through the application without erroring itself out, which is really important to keep in mind, because there are users which will most likely just want to find any possible way of breaking your application, and we want to prevent that from happening. Also, I'm thinking this through as I'm writing the code and explaining everything. So if this takes a little bit longer, I'm sorry. Next thing, what do we want? So we've defined the main numbers. So yeah, that's cool. Let's actually create the loop itself. So we'll be using a while loop for this. So do, and then we do the beginning bracket. And then we move all the way down here, we'll end the bracket here, type in while, and in the while will be the exit doesn't equal 0, so as long as it doesn't equal 0, so we want to do a negative one, so as long as it doesn't equal 0, it will keep on continuing. If it equals 0, it will, no, actually, so if it doesn't equal 1, there we go. So it's equal to 0, and if it isn't equal to 1, it will just keep on going, which is what we essentially want. So yeah. That's the do while loop. That's the main. This will actually keep the application running until we exit it, which is what we want. What we can do actually over here is we can type in console dot write line, and what we can do is you can do thank you for using my calculator. Excuse me. Thank you for using my calculator. There we go. Then we'll do console.read key. As you can see, the highlighting here works pretty much flawlessly. So what this section does, it just writes out thanks for using my calculator as soon as it exits this loop, which will house the main logic and everything else in it. So as soon as it exits, it will just write out the message and wait for input, therefore killing the application. So we've our main numbers defined and all of the other stuff. We're going to ask the user for input. So to achieve that, we're going to type in that num1 equals convert dot to int 32, and we want to do console dot read line, and we want to do this, and here we're going to do console dot write line enter the value of num1, which will be the number 1. We won't be using write line here, we'll be using just write, so it puts the cursor right behind it. And essentially what we can do, we can copy this section of code and just change it for num2 fairly easily with just 2 changes. So here we'll change this to num2, and here we'll change this to num2 as well, therefore letting the user input his new numbers if they so desire. it will ask them either way, but you know, in fact, to make sure that it does work as it should, we're going to do it like this. We'll do this at the beginning of the do section here, and all we'll ask for is just the re-input of the numbers right here. So it is repeating code, yes, I know. It isn't elegant, I am aware of that. We're just asking, also enter the new value to separate this. So enter the new value, there we go. To make it seem like it's a bit more professional looking, so that it looks like it knows that we've picked the new number thing here. So if the new number thing equals 1 actually, because it otherwise equals 0. So yeah, this is that defined. So here's some basic logic defined, which is what we wanted. Also, I'll move these with indents so that we have a nice and more clean looking code. So it doesn't look like something written by someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, or that they don't know what they're doing. So with all of this done, this is our basic logic of... So we've defined our exit logic, well, not fully yet, because in order to define the exit logic properly, which is what I'm going to do now. So to define our exit logic a bit more properly, we're going to write out, so console dot write and we want to do do you want to so first we're going to ask them if they want to enter in your numbers. So do you want to enter new numbers, and we're going to say that 1 equals yes, 1 equals yes, and 0 equals no, and whoops, equals no, there we go. And here we're going to add a bit more logic. So actually we don't even have to do that, because if they pick 1 it will automatically ask them, which is what we want to do. Because as soon as it equals this, it will just do this. It should at least. Next we're going to do, yeah, we're going to do new num, and we're going to do set the equal console dot read line, and here we're going to actually before this do convert dot to into 32 and put this in their own separate brackets, close in the brackets, and that's it. So it will check for that, and if the new normal value is equal to 1, it will ask them to re-enter new values. If it's equal to 0, it will go into the other section, which will be console dot write. Now one thing I just realized as I'm writing this, it won't actually properly indent, at least that's what I think. So what my idea is, we will have to do a \n thing here, because we're now separated by 1 line essentially, and we're gonna add this to these ones as well. And actually have to do it for these ones over here, I think. And here I'm going to add it before this and before this. Put this into those brackets that we have come to love. Boom, boom. And now we wanna what do we wanna do? We wanna ask if they wanna exit the application. So so do actually, what did I think of it? Yeah, that's actually what we want to do. Yeah, we're gonna have to then recreate the entire logic over here as well, so it doesn't really, it's not the most elegant method, but it does work. So do you want to exit the app, and then 1 equals yes, obviously. And 0 equals no, as previously mentioned. And then we don't have to do pretty much almost anything. The only thing we'll do or change is we will take this section of code right here and just pop it in here, but we'll change that variable to exit because we wanted to change the value of our exit because we don't want to change any other value. And this is pretty much it. I just realized I forgot something. It is something really important and I didn't prepare. And it's our command line. How could I have forgotten about this? Forgot about our friend command line right here. Let me just find where it is. No. It's in your folder? No, it isn't. Give me a sec, I'm going to have to find it. Alright, it didn't take that long, just a few seconds. So, I'm going to have to move this slightly. It doesn't look that weird. And we can do csc.exe and then do c double those thing, then we switch to the keyboard and we type in a code thing here. Whoops, no! God damn it. So csc.exe and then do c double dot backslash code backslash and calculator.cs. Okay, so that's prepared. Oh, you guys cannot see it because of my face. There we go. It's above me right now. Let me just move this slightly. There we go. There you go. Okay, good. So, yeah, so this is some basic logic right here defined. It's not perfect at all. It could have looked much better, but again, this is to make it as simple as possible. We're not going for anything clean here, and it's an application that might be worthy of your first, let's say, project. If you're starting out with C# and you want to show off that you have created a calculator, it's up to you. So with that defined, we have some basic logics, a loop used. What else is that needed? Well, now we need to do our calculations. To do our calculations, we're going to give the user the option to pick from various kinds of calculations. So, let me first do it over here. So to give the user the ability to pick different calculations and to make our lives a bit easier, we could just straight up write out the answer for every single number in there and be done with it. However, I want to give the user the option to pick, because who doesn't like the option to be able to pick a certain calculation? So, to do that, we're going to use one of my favorite ones. It's called the switch, and I just realized something that we're missing. Oh no, move, there we go. I just realized one thing that we're missing. We're missing a fairly important part. We do have our switch thing here, but we do not have a switch variable. This is where the top part comes in again. SW will be equal to 0. This again will be equal to 0. If you know, it won't be equal to anything. We'll just have the SW variable. Do I want to have it equal to 0? Yes, I do, because I don't want it to scream at me that nothing works. So we'll define our variable up here because it's a globe. Essentially, these variables up here are the most prioritized ones, and the more up you go, the bottom ones will be able to use. So here we're going to use the SW, the switch that we decided, and essentially how a switch works is it uses cases, and you can even have a default case in case the user doesn't pick anything, which in our case it will always execute a calculation because it's set to 0. So I mean, it's a much better way of defining if anything else happens. So we'll type in case, and in case the user picks 0, it will do, let me switch keyboards real quick, there we go. It will do console dot right line, I guess, and we'll end it off. And before it actually does that, we're going to have to create another variable which I didn't think of in the float part, and that will be called res, which will be our result, and that will be equal to 0 as of now. And it will do the calculations for us over here. So in case 0 is picked, it will what will it do? We want the res to be equal to the addition of the two numbers that we have defined, which will be num1 plus num2. There we go. And what we want to type out is num1 plus double quotes plus num2 plus, and the double quotes once again, equals, plus, and res. And then we want to add a break behind it. I usually put breaks like this right below it so that we have it nicely separated, and it's much easier to know when the case begins and where it ends. And we're just going to copy this a bunch of times. And here we're going to add a case default, or just a default essentially. And in case the default one will happen, it will just do the addition, because why not? And here we're going to do for case 1, case 2, and case 3. This will be subtraction. So we have to change it over here in the code. We'll do subtraction. Here we'll do multiplication. And we'll do multiplication here as well. And here we'll do division. And here we'll do division as well. And since these are float numbers, we'll be able to see the result in the proper format. And in case nothing will be picked, then it will do the addition, which is the part right here. So that's a basic menu logic, but we do not have the menu. So to fix that, we're going to create one. To create a simple, really simple form of a menu, all you have to do is use the console dot write part, and what you want to do here is essentially switch your keyboard again, type in the \n to indent it by one line further down, and then you do pick an operation. We'll do the double dots once again, and then we do a plus sign, and then we can add these strings together. So again, we'll do switch the keyboards again, next again, do 0 dash do addition, and then we can copy this, pump it in like 4 to 5 times. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll clean this one out fully. However, the other ones will be cleaned only partially. So here we'll do 1 for subtraction. Then we do 2, which is multiplication. Multiplication. And number 3, which is division. And then we do your pick, and we wait for the user to type something in. And in order to grab the input of the variable, we need to, again, I'm going to just copy this because it's much easier for me to utilize. And we just change this to switch, or just SW, because that's what it's being used as, and there we go. So this is essentially what the meat of our application looks like, and essentially we need to and forgive me for this, we're going to have to copy all of this, well, almost all of this, like once we let them pick the option with the new, we don't actually have to redo this, we can just leave it as it is. This is essentially our entire application written in 58, and we started at 14. In less than 40 lines, I would say, in less than 40 lines of code, we've managed to create a, let's have a look, yeah, in less than 48, I think. But let's actually use our calculator here. So in 46 lines of code, we managed to define our calculator, hopefully successfully. So if we decide to compile it, it should work. As you can see, no complaints here. So what we do now is launch our calculator, and it asks us for our value. So let me just move this slightly so you guys can see it, and zoom in a bit. So you can see it asks us for the value when I type in. So I don't know, let's do I don't know, 2, and here we do 3, and now it asks us for the operation we want to do, which I don't know, let's do addition. And oh, there we go. As you can see, it completed successfully. And it's asking us if we want to type in new numbers. So if we pick 0, it should move on, which it did. And if we pick 0 again, it should ask us for new values, which it does. So let's do 2 and 3 again. Let's pick addition again, and if we pick 1, it should ask us for a new, I think. As you can see, it did not call the function properly. So yeah, so one part is working fine, the other isn't. So and let me remove it like the RAM thing. There we go. So what happened there? Well, obviously it's not working properly because it doesn't have the unum thing here. We have to move this because it's not working properly. So we have to move the entire unum thing over. Or do we? Well, what we can do is we can get over here, and if they pick 1, it should check if it was picked. If it was, we have to redo the entire thing right here, which I have to find in this thing. And let me just say that it's not fun to add those in and indent those, and it's not pretty looking already. I already discussed it myself. There are prettier ways of doing this. Actually, you know what? No, let's not do it like this. This is just not a cool way, and it doesn't look good at all. So what will be a good way of making such an application work properly? Well, we could use classes. Now you will be going, wait a second, what the hell is a class? Well, the class, actually we don't even have to do that, we can create a custom void with, you know. So essentially we can use either classes or voids for this. Or we could just copy the section we've written over here with our logic and stuff. However, there are methods with which we can make this a lot faster and easier on ourselves instead of, you know, I could just copy this and just indent it again and reiterate it, but that's not fun now, is it? What we can do, we can use the void thing here. So I'm going to create a public void, void, and let's call it calc, why not? Put those brackets in, put these squiggly brackets in, and what our calc will do is it will essentially replace the entire thing we have right here with all the floats and stuff, and we will move it over here so it's in its own separate section, which is what we want. And we'll just call the calc function, and here what we do is we just copy this and move the calc function here, and there we go. So essentially what we did is we essentially reduced our program by a ton of lines just by creating this public void called calc. What even is this? So essentially this is a, let's say a function. We are calling a function which doesn't return a value, it's a void. So essentially it's a free space for our code to run in, and all I did was I moved all the lines of code like into this one section. I'm really sorry if you just are looking at this and screaming at your screen. I'm really sorry, but there we go, made it look a bit more clean. So essentially what we're doing here in this section, as soon as we launch the app, we are calling this function right here, but you might have noticed that it's not perfect. Well, that's because it's not. What are we using? We're using the switch part, right? Only the switch? Yes, we're using only the switch. So we can actually get rid of this part right here, and we can copy this section and create a new integer up here called s3 to make our lives a bit easier. And there we go, and that's our application pretty much ready. So what are the changes that we've made right now? Essentially we could plop this down, like literally, but what we are doing here is instead of repeating ourselves, we have this block of code, which is the, if I hide this, so you can see here is the calc thing, and here's the calc thing again. So essentially what we're doing is like, hey, I need you to call this function, and what it will do, it will go into this section of the code right here and execute all of this. And then it will do this, ask us if we want to type in a new number or not. I just remember to indent this by one space. And if we pick the option 1 for new numbers, it will check if we have selected the 1 option. If we picked 1, it will call the calc function. So essentially it will call this thing, this humbo jumbo of code again, and then it will ask us if we want to exit the app. And it's still in a while loop, so if we pick 0 for no, it will just keep on going. So we just like repeat itself. Essentially this function is not needed there, but it's a nice option if you want to just, you know, give the user an option. So with all this set, does it work now? I don't know. Let's try and compile it. Uh-oh. We have some problems. Yeah, so I was afraid. So we need to do static. There we go. It should work now. So what was it screaming about? So essentially, if you are working with numbers, it expects a static void, because the only thing, you don't want the numbers to change midway. That's not what you want. So you just, if we set this to static, essentially what it does, it creates a static space for our numbers to so that the numbers don't change basically during the execution of the application, and it will just keep the values as they are without changing them unless we decide what we want to do with them. I'm just checking the time, how much I've been rambling about, but this is a fairly important one, and it's really important to explain everything that I'm doing. So now I should be able to just launch the calculator without any issues. Where's the calculator? There it is. So it asks us for the values again. So we're going to do 2 and 3. And it asks us to pick, let's pick addition once again. No, let's actually pick, what can we pick? Multiplication. As you can see, 2 times 3 equals 6. And you might have noticed that by adding the space right here in the code, it moves the cursor by 1 space. So it asks us, do we want to enter new numbers? I'll pick no. It will skip it. Do we want to exit the application? We pick no. Guess what? It restarts the application again. Let's do 2 and 3 once again. Let's pick, I don't know, division. Oh, as you can see, the number is written out correctly, which is what we wanted to happen. And now it asks us, do we want to enter new numbers? So I picked no in the first part, so let's pick 1. Guess what? It moves itself back into the part of the code that we've created. And let's do, I don't know, 2 and 3 for consistency once again. And let's pick subtraction, why not? As you can see, it doesn't crash, it writes out -1. And it asks us again if we want to exit the app. If I press 1, it will write out thank you for using my calculator. So as soon as we type in 1, so as soon as it equals 1, it will exit the loop. And just write this out, wait for our input, and that's it. That's our full-fledged calculator. I hope it made sense. I spent too much time talking about this, but it is really important to understand how it works, and you can essentially create a full-fledged calculator within C#. And this was, I think, hopefully the final one in this series. I also explained classes during this. There are a bunch of things you can do with classes. I haven't touched upon these, but I hope this made sense. This is essentially what you can, well, this isn't the class, it's essentially a function we've created, which is really useful so we don't have to rewrite entire sections of code again, therefore reducing our code by quite a bit. Essentially imagine having another, 50 lines of code here, another 50 lines of code here. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It's not a good approach. Instead of rewriting it, you can just use literally 2 lines of code to do this thing right here, which is really cool in my opinion. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you learned something. I hope this wasn't too mind-boggling. I tried to explain everything as well as I could, and I hope that you guys find some enjoyment from this, because this is pretty much the last one, I think the last video in this series, because all the fundamentals I wanted to explain are explained. This is the final application. You do not need anything more. You can now start exploring and do various kinds of things with C# that you weren't able to do before. It's all up to you. I'm not forcing you. So that's pretty much it. That's the final application in this series, pretty much. And that's from the console side of things. There are also Windows forms and other sorts of frameworks we can use to create applications. However, in most schools you'll be stuck using console applications, and you'll be learning how to use additions, multiplications and stuff anyway. You'll be stuck learning loops and stuff. It's basically the fundamentals of programming. If you do not know how to use these things, you won't be able to make it far. I just, by today, like, this is the last video I'm recording because it's getting really late, I'm getting fairly tired. And I'm just rambling right now to fill up the time, but essentially, I made videos about HTML today, about 4 videos, showing you from zero to a full-fledged website and how you can publish it so you can have a public presence. You can use that to create your portfolio like I have, and you can essentially start doing things and teach other people how to do stuff. And that's what I love about this. That's what I love about being so knowledgeable about technology. You can teach other people how to do cool stuff. You can teach them how to write full-fledged applications. Enough of rambling. Make sure to wash your hands and stay safe. And just don't do anything crazy during the pandemic. And make sure to share the video around. If you found it useful, leave a like or a comment if for any possible video ideas. And I'll see you guys in hopefully the next video. If I think of a topic, I'll hopefully try and make it. I don't really know. So yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.